Mr. Jimmy Proffitt, how are you doing today, sir?
Joey, I think I'm doing great. We're quarantined and isolated. We're down at the beach with a better internet connection, better phone connection, better view, a better walk. So everybody's logged in and plugged in, and we're still open for business. So we're doing well. Thanks.
That's good. That's good. I mean, the beach is certainly a much more desirable place to be, I would imagine, than maybe my location, just outside of Cleveland. So I have to say, maybe a little jealous, but I'll try to work past it.
We'll uh, we'll get along fine, Joey.
Yeah. I got to say, first off, I've heard a lot about you. This is the first time I've really had a chance to talk with you, but you have the best name possibly ever. I don't know if Martin Scorsese's tried to option it for like a movie writer or some kind.
I've heard them all. Every profit, deficit, loss, combination, permutation, every combination of that profit, loss,
Yeah.
word I've heard it before. So yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it over the years.
Very nice. First non-serious question for you, Jimmy. I got to know, is there a hobby that you've kind of rediscovered in this time of quarantine? Is there something that you kind of refound the passion for, reignited it, since you've got, just like you said, just kind of enclosed in your own four walls for such a long period of time?
I wish I could say I have refound a hobby. I've got my golf clubs with me, but there's nowhere to play. We're doing a big puzzle as a family, and we need our daughter down here to help us with it, and mostly just beach walks and doing some push-ups in the living room.
All right. So I got to know, how many pieces in the puzzle?
Oh, it's got to be a couple thousand, I would think. It's a tough one.
All right. And now, I'm not a big puzzle guy, but I hear like the really advanced people, they do them face down. Are we face up at this point? Or where are we at?
We're novices. We're absolutely face up.
All right. Do you look at the box? Are you looking at the box?
Oh, definitely. Got the colors sorted and
all right.
Trying to do it the right way.
Every time I look at a puzzle, like I'll do like 50 piece with my kids. I'm like, one of these days I'm going to be good enough to just flip them over and not look at the box, and we're just going to knock it out. But I'm not there yet.
I guess my new thing that we've done is I've done more virtual happy hours than I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, when in Rome, I guess, you got to resort to what you can.
You do, and happy hour seems to be creeping up a little bit every day, so we got to be smart about that.
Yeah, you just gotta take it easy. So what I want to talk to you today about is really the state of transportation.
Right.
I'm curious. I would imagine that there's a portion of it that is booming. It's just insane, where they're delivering packages, all that kind of stuff. And I'm assuming there's also a portion of it that is completely decimated. What are you seeing just overall in terms of the transportation business, and as it relates to the coverages that they may or may not be needing at this time?
You've described it right. It's a very segmented industry, and certain segments are doing pretty well. And our clients who haul the commodities and the food goods in the van trailers and the refrigerated trailers are doing very well right now, because there's been such a demand to get the food into the grocery stores, get the shelves stocked again. They've done very well, although we're now starting to see that demand come down a little bit. The folks in the other type of industries, our fuel haulers, our milk haulers, the demand has virtually ceased for those folks. People just aren't buying as much gas as they were.
Yeah.
We've got some milk haulers, I saw this yesterday, that are actually dumping milk. They don't have anywhere to put it, and they have nowhere to sell it.
Wow. Why milk? That's interesting, because it was flying off the shelves early in the game.
It was, but a lot of the milk goes to the schools.
Oh, okay.
And we've just got more milk than we can accommodate right now. So it varies, and our flatbed haulers, which would indicate the construction, that held up for a little while, but that demand is starting to fall somewhat as well. So it really depends on our truckers, what they're hauling. The commodities where we're stocking the shelves and bringing in the food and the toilet paper, there's still big demand, but for the rest of them, they're having to retool their businesses and find other ways to make a living.
Now, have you been seeing anybody kind of repurposing their fleet, their transportation game into hauling other things just to stay going kind of during this time? And how does that impact, what they might originally have been covered for? What are you seeing from that standpoint?
Absolutely. We're seeing the fuel haulers who are learning to haul dry goods. Same with our flatbed haulers. They're trying to repurpose themselves and learn a different niche. In fact, this is anecdotal, but I ran into a friend who told me he had a friend who was a trucker who was hauling for the Garth Brooks tour, where they would haul the haul the musical instruments and set up and take down, but that obviously got canceled. So he turned around that afternoon and got a job working for Kroger and delivering for Kroger food stores.
Wow. I mean, not as exciting as being on tour with Garth Brooks, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right?
You do what you got to do. You got to make a living.
So what do you see in terms of, if we're looking at this from the agent's perspective, what do you think they need to be paying attention to if they've got clients that are making these transitions? Are their policies going to be kind of enough just as they were, or is it something they're going to need to revisit with all of their trucking clients, all their transportation clients, to say, listen, what are you doing now? And let's make sure that you've got this thing taken care of, because the last thing you want is to be, kind of pivoting in your business and then all of a sudden be doing something that you're not very experienced in and not have the right amount of coverage for it.
Yeah, absolutely so. And as our trucking clients change the commodities that they're hauling, they need to be in touch with their retail producers, and our retail producers need to be reaching out to their trucking clients. For example, the cargo policies that our truckers buy, they're different. And if we have a client who goes from hauling flatbed goods to hauling refrigerated goods, then they need a different cargo policy that will cover the refrigerator spoilage.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's probably something they, the client themselves, the trucking company or whatever, they're not thinking about necessarily, I would imagine, especially during this kind of frantic time.
No, they're thinking about where can I get that next load and where can I deliver it and where can I get paid again, because they have to stay in business.
Yeah. What have you seen from our standpoint in terms of, just some of the things that have come across our plate in terms of how we've kind of adjusted and handled to the situations? What is there any kind of unique situation or circumstance that kind of pops up in terms of kind of intervening and kind of putting things together for that?
Absolutely. We have a wide variety of markets we represent. We're very close to those markets. They're not just vendors, they're partners with us. And we work very closely to do what we have to do to keep our clients in business. And the big question that we're getting from our clients is, what can I do to mitigate my exposure? For example, we're taking vehicles that we were previously running long haul and charging a long haul premium, and we're doing a lot of things. We're letting them delete the units. We're letting them report lower mileage on our mileage reporting policies. We're waiving monthly minimums. We're reclassifying those units into lower premium situations. So all with the design and the desire to keep our truckers in business, because we need them out there hauling for us. And once this turns around, we think the demand could rocket, and we want to be in place to take care of those clients and be there for them.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned. I'm curious, what do you think it looks like? A couple months, 6 months. Really, just what are we dealing with, kind of moving ahead in terms of the industry in general? What do you think it will swing right back to a huge demand? Is there anything that will kind of change forever in terms of the way that agents are going to need to approach these policies now?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I don't think anybody knows that yet. And we're all watching the news every day and reading the economic journals and the trade journals, and I don't think there's a real consensus on it. But if we've learned anything from history, is that if you bought it, if you ate it, if you drank it, if you wore it, if you consumed it and bought it off the shelf, it came in on a truck.
Yeah.
So we don't believe that trucking and transportation is going away by any means.
Yeah. So if you had to sort of break it down in terms of, an agent's perspective, for those brokers out there, what do you think, if you had to kind of give them like maybe a mini 1, 2, 3 sort of action plan in terms of, assessing their clients, reaching out to them? How are they providing value at this point? Like, what would you, in a perfect world, like to see an agent do to make sure that their clients are taken care of right now?
To give you a little bit of history on that, which may frame this, the commercial auto business has been under stress for about the last 10 years. The loss results from the companies have not been profitable, and commercial auto has underperformed the rest of the industry by 12 to 15 points. So what's happened is, over the last 8 to 10 years, insurance rates have continued to go up. And we expect insurance rates to continue to go up. And the data that's being used to evaluate our trucking companies is becoming more widespread. There's a lot of public information out there that the companies are using to underwrite and price their business. So my advice to the retail producers in working with their clients is make sure you work closely with your clients and make sure you encourage them to take good care of their safety scores, be in compliance, be selective about which drivers you put behind the wheel, because there's a lot of pressure to get the trucks rolling. And we have, up until now, we have had a driver shortage in our industry. So there's been a lot of pressure from these trucking companies just to put people in the seats. And we've had a number of unqualified drivers on the road, which has been part of the reason why the loss results have not been as good. So my advice and recommendation to the retail producers and trucking clients is, number one, be very aware of your safety scores, because that's the first thing any insurance company is going to look at when they're underwriting and pricing. Be very selective about your driver pool. Take care. It's not just about hiring the best drivers. It's about retaining your best drivers as well. So let's make sure we're treating our truckers well. Let's pay them well, treat them with respect. It's a hard job, even in the best of times. And it's become a harder job with all this COVID going on.
Yeah. And, let's maybe just take a break from all that. Let's put all that aside. I'm kind of curious. You've been doing this a long time. You've been in the game in terms of the trucking industry. What do you think? What are you most excited about, before all of this, like where things were going? Like, what were you most excited to see kind of happen as the way we approach the business and the way it's kind of handled? Is there anything kind of that really got you going and saying, man, yeah, if we could just get to this? I know we've talked a lot about, the advancement in that space just from a delivery standpoint, but what are you really excited about in terms of the way we can actually innovate on this coverage?
Well, we're using a lot of data. There's more data and analytics today than there's ever been. And a lot of the data and analytics are used in a predictive model to determine, the probability of having losses or not having losses.
Yeah.
And the companies and MGAs like us who are best able to harness their data, organize their data, and understand their data are going to be way ahead of the competitors who are doing it the old way, where there's a lot of intuition in their underwriting and their pricing. So I'm excited about the data. I'm excited about the robotics that we're using to enter that data. We've got a robotics process we started about a year ago. And instead of having our senior underwriters enter all the data for all the markets, we now have robots entering that data for us. And it's doing a lot of different things for us. It's quicker. We're quicker to market. We're much more efficient. Our data is more accurate. And we think we're able to deliver a better product quicker for our clients as a function of that.
All right, Jimmy, I got one more question for you. And really, I'm just kind of curious from a holistic standpoint, where do you think the agent's focus needs to be right now in terms of the coverage? And is there one particular thing that they really need to zero in on? I know we've kind of talked broadly. We've kind of talked about a wide range of things, but if you had to boil it down to if they only did sort of one thing to make sure that they're kind of touching their clients, is there one thing that stands out above the rest that really would help them in the long term with retaining their clients and making sure they're properly covered?
Yeah, I think the real key for the retail producers is to specialize and be an expert and be a true professional in the industry. Because what we're seeing is the transportation business is now being controlled more and more by the specialists. And that's both for the insurance carriers, the MGA wholesalers like us, and for the retail producers. The specialists are the ones that are writing the business. They have access to more markets, more data, and we see the generalists getting squeezed out of this. Kind of like a lot of other niches. If you're going to do this, it's gotten more complicated. It's become a harder business over the last 8 to 10 years. And it seems like the experts and specialists are the ones that are thriving, and those who are just dabbling in it are getting left behind.
All right, I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question, Jimmy, because that's a good point. So, and I think the agents and brokers, they sometimes will classify specialization maybe different than what you might be kind of thinking about. And so, for example, I know most agents, they either do trucking or they don't. They do transportation or they don't. It's not something that they just kind of dabble with. So in terms of specialization, you got like long haul, like last mile, you've got commercial fleets. Like how specific and how many of these kind of specializations do you think somebody could handle well?
Well, I think if you're working transportation all day, every day, I think you can be an expert in a variety of the niches within transportation.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't think you can do is write personal lines on Monday, transportation on Tuesday, environmental business on Wednesday, and heavy casualty or property on Thursday. Or just take whatever comes in the door on a given day. That's not working. And we do see a lot of retail producers who dabble in transportation. The premiums are seductive. Our transportation clients, they pay big premiums, and it can be seductive for our retailers. But the ones who do not specialize end up spending a lot of time and effort, and a lot of times they come up with a zero on that.
All right, Jimmy. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It was a lot of fun. And thank you for kind of breaking it down for us and let us know what's going on.
I hope this has been helpful for you, Joey, and thank you. I appreciate it.